Well, I think a lot of people, especially in academia, want to believe that um, human behavior is highly malleable or modifiable by social construction, social rules, or whatever the case might be, because in that way, they can mold the population to behave in ways that they think is most appropriate. Um, I think a lot of it comes from um, some women who are very competitive and compete with guys in the broader cultural domain and want to think that there's really no differences between men and women. And so the finding that there's more men going into engineering, for example, has to be a social construct due to, beliefs, stereotypes, bias, or whatever the case might be. It can't be due to, well, there actually are differences between boys and girls and men and women. And some of those differences push boys and men in one direction and girls and women in another direction. And if that's the case,
Mm,
they can't rearrange society to reflect their preferences.
not perfectly anyway, or not as far as they might sort of want to push it.
Right.
So, do we actually know whether part of our nature is actually sort of driven by the society or the cultures that we are raised in? And do we actually know roughly what sort of percentage of our drivers is down to evolutionary biology and the way that we've evolved, and what percentage, if you like, is actually due to the environment which we were raised in?
Right. Great question. We don't really know the percentages, and certainly there are really important um, cultural, social influences on behavior, including sex differences in behavior. I think a lot of those social rules um, either amplify or suppress the expression of evolved biases, or they keep them in check or make them larger than they
Uh,
otherwise would. But I don't think they're actually creating a lot of the behavioral differences between men and women, minimizing or exaggerating them, depending on the culture, context, and a variety of other things.
so the drivers are still there, but just by the fact that we are a social creature and we have to obey by the rules of the community that we find ourselves in, we have to sort of keep them at bay, if you like. Is that correct?
Right, right, pretty much. So one example is rough and tumble play. So, wrestling, horsing around, pushing one another, stuff like that. Boys engage in it 3 to 6 more times more frequently than girls, and it's a way of, it's play fighting. And in other species, it is kind of practice and refinement of actual physical competitive skills that will emerge in adolescence. Now, some cultures where most of the males don't actually fight in wars and so forth, the rough and tumble play, the boys' socialization of it is kind of tamped down. It's kind of, yeah, let's not do that, let's not get out of hand, and you can't get rid of it completely, but you can suppress it. In societies where there's a lot of male on male violence, intergroup warfare, and so forth in adulthood, the adults of the society actually amplify rough and tumble play. They make it more aggressive,
Hmm.
more painful, and so forth. So they're making more aggressive guys than they would otherwise get, which they need in that context. In other societies where you don't need a lot of warrior males, they're suppressing it. So they're making the guys less aggressive, but you still get the sex difference in either case. It's just smaller or bigger.